Mad Rockweek Serial, Chapter 5, Sleepover. Tell me about the shadow again, Lulu. Buddy grinned up at his cousin like he was asking for a second slice of cake. The shadow stories had become their sleepover thing, like comic books or scary movies, except this was better because it belonged to them. It belonged to the town. It belonged to the dark. Lewis was 14 and had 1,000 better things to do, in theory. In practice, his parents kept pushing these nights like they were vitamins. Good for you, builds character, family matters, all that. Lewis would have rolled his eyes harder if Buddy didn't have this way of looking at him. Like Lewis was the bravest person alive just because he knew the good stories. Lewis climbed down from the top bunk and sat on the lower mattress beside Buddy. Outside the window, Buddy's dog, Ribbits, barked at nothing and everything. The sound drilled into Lewis's skull. He hated that dumb dog. He hated the way you hated something you couldn't do anything about. "You want to hear about the shadow?" Lewis said, and he couldn't help but smile because Buddy almost vibrated with excitement. "You know you can't talk about the shadow," he added, "because that was the rule and saying it was half the fun. Don't talk about the shadow or he'll hear you," Buddy chirped, clapping his hands like it was a nursery rhyme. "Shh," Lewis whispered, glancing toward the door. They'd already been warned twice for being too loud. Buddy's parents ran their house like it was a prison, and Lewis didn't feel like getting yelled at again. "I'll tell you the story, but you gotta be quiet, promise?" "Pinky promise," Buddy giggled. Lewis shook his head. "None of that baby crap, just be quiet." Buddy mimed zipping his lips and bounced on the bed, all knees and elbows in 9-year-old energy. "There was this family," Lewis began. "Not the swimming pool one," Buddy whined immediately. "Tell me the trapster one." Lewis rolled his eyes. "The trapper one?" He sighed, like he was suffering for the art, then leaned into it anyway because he liked the way Buddy listened when it got good. "Okay, a long time ago," Lewis said, "like before there were cities and stuff, back in Indian times, there were these 3 trappers." Buddy nodded fast. "They catch animals and cut their skins and sell it for coats and hats. Animals like coons and rabbits and kitties." "Close enough," Lewis said, and kept going. "These 3 dudes are tough. Big tough men. Ain't afraid of nothing." "What are their names?" Buddy asked. Lewis paused. This was new. Buddy never asked for their names. "What?" Lewis said. Buddy bounced. "Can they be Larry, Curly, and Moe?" Lewis regretted those 3 Stooges DVDs instantly. "Fine, Larry, Curly, and Moe." He started again. "They're walking through the woods at night to check their traps. No animals, none. Like the woods went empty." Buddy leaned in. "Is there lightning?" Lewis looked around the room like it might offer help. "Sure, lots. Lightning and thunder and all that." He lowered his voice. "And that's why Larry Curly didn't notice Moe ain't behind them anymore." Buddy's face pinched. Lewis got a little jolt of satisfaction out of it and hated himself for it. Just a little. "They keep walking," Lewis said. "Then Larry wants to keep going toward their shelter up in the cliffs, but Curly says they gotta go back for Moe." Buddy went still. Even Ribbits seemed to pause his barking for half a second, like the dog was listening too. "Curly goes back," Lewis said. "Larry keeps going. Next morning, Larry wakes up alone. Curly and Moe never came back. Larry figures they're grown men and they'll show up, so he goes to check the traps again." Lewis leaned in close enough that Buddy could smell his toothpaste. "First trap he comes to," Lewis whispered. "He looked inside and finds..." Buddy's eyes went huge. "Their heads." Buddy held his breath for exactly 1 second and then did what Buddy always did. Tried to understand the part that wasn't supposed to make sense. "What kind of trap was it?" Buddy asked, frowning. "Like, what did it look like?" Lewis froze. He hadn't thought about it. He never needed to. In his head, it was just a trap, a scary shape in the dark, but now Buddy wanted details, and details had teeth. "The end," Lewis said, shrugging his way out of it. He climbed back into the top bunk, pulling the blanket up like he could block out Buddy, the dog, and the whole stupid world. Outside, Ribbits finally shut up, blessed silence. Maybe Lewis could sleep. "You told it better last time," Buddy complained. "Well," Lewis murmured, voice thick and tired, "you weren't this annoying last time. Can we please turn off the lamp for once?" Buddy jerked upright. "No, it keeps the shadow away." Lewis snorted. "Yeah, doesn't sound like it's working." Because right then, from the window across the room, there came a soft scrape. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. Lewis felt the little hair at the back of his neck lift. "What was that?" Buddy whispered. Lewis wanted to say nothing. He wanted to say wind. He wanted to say your dog finally stopped barking and you're hearing things. Instead, because he was 14 and because he didn't know when to shut up, Lewis whispered, "I told you we shouldn't talk about the shadow." Buddy made a sound and dove under his covers. The bunk bed shook. Lewis waited, eyes opening now, listening. He told himself Buddy would doze off like always. He told himself the scrape was a tree branch or a loose shutter. Then it happened again, longer this time, slower, like someone dragging a fingernail down glass. Lewis opened his eyes wider. "The shadow's outside," Buddy whispered from under the blanket. His voice was small and wet. "Lulu, I'm scared." "This can't go on all night," Lewis muttered to himself, mostly to himself. He leaned over the top bunk rail. "Bud, there's nobody out there. It's the wind." "I heard him," Buddy whispered. "Buddy," Lewis hissed, "look at me." After a moment, Buddy's face peeked out, pale in the lamplight. "Buddy," Lewis said, trying to sound older than he felt, "there's no one outside. Trust me, if there was, your stupid dog would be barking." Buddy stared toward the window. "Mr. Ribbits," he whispered. His lowered lip trembled. "The shadow killed Mr. Ribbits." Lewis groaned. "Nobody killed your damn dog." Buddy didn't lie down. He started crying quietly, trying to be silent the way the kids do when they know they're not supposed to cry. Lewis felt his patience snap. "Dude," he said, "if you walk your crybaby butt over there and look out the window, I guarantee you'll see the dumb dog asleep in his dumb doghouse." Buddy looked up through the tears, hope and fear fighting in his face. "You promise?" "Pinky swear," Lewis said, making the little hand motion Buddy liked, mocking him. "Pinky promise?" Buddy corrected. "Mom says only sinners swear." Buddy slid off the bed. Lewis watched him cross the room, 5 steps. Stop. Buddy turned back, eyes big. He was halfway there and already wanting permission to quit. "You can do it," Louis said. "You're a big boy, right? Not some wussy baby." Buddy's face scrunched up like he was gearing for battle. "Ain't no wussy baby," he growled, and took 2 more steps. "Hurry up," Lewis said, because teasing felt safer than admitting he was listening to the window too. Buddy took another step, big breath, another step. He reached the window. "Look out the blinds," Lewis said, pointing like a coach. Buddy leaned in and peeked through the slat, almost ripping them down. He fixed them fast and looked back at Lewis like he needed a gold star. "Dude," Lewis said automatically, "if you break those, your dad will beat your ass." Buddy turned back. This time he pressed his cheek to the glass and pulled the blinds wider, opening a gap. He went very still. "I see an eye," Buddy whispered. Lewis laughed, relief spilling out as cruelty. "That's your reflection, you idiot." Then Lewis leaned forward to look through the opening. Buddy stepped back, making a little choking sound. Lewis froze. Buddy was right. An eye stared back at them from the darkness outside. Too close, too steady. Not a kid's prank, not a trick of the light. Buddy stumbled backward again, forgetting to let go of the blinds. They tore loose and dropped, and there he was, a tall figure outside the window, gaunt, long gray hair hanging down like wet weeds, face pale in the lamplight, stretched into something that almost wanted to be a smile. Lewis couldn't breathe. Before Buddy could finish the step, the thing lunged. Glass exploded into the room. A hand, big hand, closed around Buddy. Buddy made a sound that wasn't a scream at first. It was confusion turning into terror. The man yanked him through what was left of the frame and into the foggy dark like Buddy weighed nothing at all. Less than 30 seconds later, Buddy's father burst through the bedroom door. He found the broken window, the shredded blinds rocking in the breeze, and Lewis, pressed back against the wall of the top bunk, mouth open, eyes huge, listening to Buddy's cries fade into the night like someone turning down the volume on a radio. Chapter 6, Morning After Sleepover. John's phone rang at 5:30 a.m. That alone was enough to make his stomach drop. Nothing good lived at 5:30. 5:30 was when people found bodies. 5:30 was when the night decided it wasn't finished with you. By 6:30 he was standing in front of Borton City Police Department with sleep still clinging to him like cobwebs. Detective Lawson Lerner leaned against the building, cigar between his fingers, smoke curling up into the cold morning air. He looked like a man who hadn't sat down all night, like he'd been running on fumes and stubbornness. "Hope you slept well," Lerner said, voice roughened by smoke and whatever he'd seen. "Not really," John said. He held out a coffee. Lerner waved it away. "Just finished my fourth in the car. You here yet?" John stared at him. "You called me. I got dressed and came here. I'm assuming it's Garrison." Lerner's eyes drifted for a second like he was watching something only he could see. "He yanked the kid out of his bedroom," he said, while the kid's cousin watched. John's throat tightened. He'd seen Lerner excited, smug, even amused. He hadn't seen him like this, disturbed in a way that set under the skin. "Livingston," Lerner went on. He took a breath like he had to step over something. "The father tries to chase him. Makes it halfway through the backyard and collapses. Wife goes after him. Before she can reach him, she goes down too." "I'm not following," John said, because his brain didn't want to. Lerner stared at the street a second, locked in a trance he got when details didn't line up. Same thing happens to the first responding officers. Anyone who runs into the fog back there, only in the backyard, gets sick, disoriented, starts seeing things. John blinked. "He gassed them?" "It doesn't feel like him," Lerner said almost to himself. "But yeah, we found little PVC pipes in yards all through the neighborhood, both sides of the back alley where he dragged the boy." John started to speak, but Lerner barreled on, and John could tell he needs to say it fast before his mind refused to. "When we evacuated, that's when we found the boy." Lerner's eyes fixed on John now, confusion, honest and naked. 8 blocks away, sprawled on a back porch, door wide open. Lerner paused, and John saw it. The moment the detective hits a piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit, it hooks him right through the cheek. "I went in," Lerner said. "Briefly, second scene." John's skin crawled. "He killed the family in that house sometime yesterday," Lerner said. "Maybe hours before he took the boy." Another pause. "He snatches a kid, drags him 8 blocks, just to kill him on the back porch of a family he already murdered?" John stared at him, and the dumbfounded look suddenly made sense. It wasn't just cruelty, it was choreography. It was a message written in blood and logistics. Then something clicked in John's head. "Did you say Livingston?" he asked. "Like the Livingston family?" Lerner ground his cigar in the sole of his shoe. "Victim is Mayor Livingston's nephew. The mayor's son is with the sketch artist right now." "Shit," John muttered. A voice behind him answered like it had been waiting. "Shit?" Mayor Moore said, laughing in a way that wasn't laughter at all. "It is hitting the fan." John turned. Before he could react, Moores grabbed the coffee right out of John's hand and took a long gulp like it was medicine. "Thank y'all for meeting me," Moore said briskly, eyes bright with stress. "It won't be long before the vultures swarm City Hall." John glanced at Lerner. Lerner gave him a wide-eyed nod and said, "Yes, it's that bad." "I talked to the chief in Port Nevers," Moore said. "He'll free up 2 warm bodies for your team. Don't expect miracles, but extra hands are what I can do." He turned to John like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. "John, you're on the team. Sonny's first pick." He lifted his hand. "For now, your reassignment is permanent until you're told otherwise." John's mouth opened and then shut again. "Law enforcement's off limits," Moore said, "but if you need help outside that, anything, tell me. I'm persuasive." John looked like he wanted to argue with the universe. "Speak, Johnny boy," Moore said, waving him on. "It's nothing," John began, then sighed. "We could really use Dr. Abigail Kinsley as a consultant, but she's way up in the big cities. Out of your persuasion." Morse chuckled. "We'll see about that." Then his expression hardened. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta meet with Skinnard." Lerner stopped him. "Is this going to be official?" Morse turned back. Mayor Livingston's son watched his cousin get taken. "This team idea has been trying to be born for years. By the end of the day, every council member will be on board." He jerked his chin. "That's Skinnard's prediction, and Skinner don't miss often." He pivoted away, then called back over his shoulder, louder now, like it helped him believe it. "You worry about stopping Garrison Green. Leave the politicking to me." By sunrise, every TV and every diner and living room in the towns had breaking news alerts stamped all across it. A young reporter stood in the Stone Gate addition with flashing lights behind her and a kind of expression that said she'd been awake since fear was invented. "I'm Emily Hernandez, reporting live," she said, voice crisp, eyes sharp. "Police have called for a partial evacuation." She said, "Unofficial sources." She said, "Cannot confirm." She said, "Public threat." She said just enough to make people's imagination do the rest. John and Lerner watched from a pancake pickup, plates empty while the story grew bigger on the TV above the bar. "Nice," John muttered, flicking 2 fingers at the screen. "Great way to start a panic. Rumors and paranoia." "It's the news," Lerner said, not looking up from his notebook. "It's what they do." John snorted. Lerner finally glanced up. "Reporters like her seem antagonistic most of the time, and most of the time they are, but sometimes, later, you realize they needed to be. Sometimes it's city policy getting shoved through quietly. Sometimes it's a rich guy slipping away clean. Sometimes it's people refusing to answer until someone forces them." He tapped his pen. "Her job is to make them answer." John shrugged. "She's still a bitch." Lerner laughed. "That she is." John pushed his plate away. "So what's the plan? We going back to the neighborhood?" Lerner turned a page in his notebook, calm, returning like a mask sliding back into place. "Garrison isn't down there. I don't believe he's still in Borton City." John felt heat rise behind his eyes. "So what? What do we do? Sit here and eat pancakes all day and hope he gets a craving for a blueberry waffle surprise?" Lerner closed his notebook and hesitated. Then he said it carefully, like it was a joke that might bite. "This morning, my chief informed me that because this team is being assembled, and because Moores is handling it, I'm no longer his problem." Lerner's mouth tightened. "Until the council votes, it's no longer my crime scene either. Because technically, I'm not a Borton City detective right now." John stared at him. "And if they don't approve it?" Lerner chuckled once. "Then I suppose I'll retire." John's eyes widened as the trap sprang shut in his head. "So if I'm assigned to you, then for the time being, you're a civilian too," Lerner said, grinning at the panic. "Talk about motivation, huh?" "Oh shit," John exclaimed. "We've got to do something." "The murdered family's car was missing from the garage," Lerner said, calm as ever. "There's an alert out. I'll get a call when it hits. He glanced down as his phone began to vibrate. And I'm expecting the lab to call about those PVC pipes. He answered. John leaned forward, hungry for anything useful, catching only Lerner's yeses and mhms, and I understand. 90 seconds later, Lerner hung up and looked at John like he was enjoying himself. How would you like some more breakfast? Lerner asked. John just stared at him, thoroughly lost. Chapter 7, The Sundown Cafe, Part 2. John drove while Lerner rode. That damn notebook again. Always the notebook. John sometimes wondered if Lerner slept with the thing open beside him, pen scratching away in the dark like it had a mind of its own. John's thoughts kept circling back to Garrison Green. Here was a man who lived outside the world, not pushed there, choosing it. Lerner's notes painted Garrison as something different from the stories John had grown up with. In Crosstown, Garrison was a boogeyman, a fireside warning told to keep kids close to home. From what little they knew, he behaved more like a hermit, someone who slipped through town every so often, took a child, and vanished back into the woods. In Crosstown, it was only kids. Author's Point ruined that idea. In the Point, Garrison was feared by everyone. Kids, teens, old folks, gang members, drunks, and dealers, and men who'd killed before. There, he wasn't just a child snatcher. He was something older, something meaner. A devil, if you believe the stories. And then there was the timing. Why now? He haunted these towns for decades. Why branch out? Why move into crowded streets instead of empty woods? Why risk being seen? The questions gnawed at John the whole drive. The more he learned about Garrison Green, the less the story wanted to behave like a story at all. Would you like something? The waitress snapped her fingers inches from John's face. He blinked and looked up. Sorry, he glanced to her name tag. Mrs. Sarah? She laughed, light and easy. I'm too young to be Mrs. anything, unless you're offering. Her smile was disarming. Too clean for a place like this. Tall, long dark hair, sharp blue eyes that didn't miss much. John felt the pull before he understood it. A small, dangerous relief. Surprise me, he said, smiling back. She smiled and walked off. John barely remembered pulling into the Sundown Cafe. Green had crawled into his head and started rearranging furniture. You gonna be okay? Lerner asked, watching him over the rim of his notebook. I think you're blushing. He didn't mention John's wife or kid. Still, something about the flirting rubbed him the wrong way. I'm fine, John said. Just thinking about my career ending and a man who doesn't make sense. Lerner nodded toward the window. I'm hoping he'll help us with both. A red sedan pulled in. Gabriel Livingston climbed out, eyes scanning the restaurant before he shut the door and came inside. You know my life is shit, Gabe said when he slid into the booth. Meeting you twice in 1 week? He motioned John over and took a seat across from Lerner. I'm guessing things went poorly after our last chat, Lerner said. Gabe barked a humorless laugh. I don't work for Crosstown anymore. I'm packing my family. We'll be gone by next week. He lit a cigarette and offered one. John declined. Lerner took it and leaned in for the Zippo flame. I was going to talk to my uncle today, Gabe said, see if he could help, but after last night he shook his head. That side of the family's sharpening knives. Sarah returned with coffee. She slid cups in front of Gabe and Lerner. 2 sugars, 2 creams, she said. Then she set John's down. 1 ice cube. John frowned. Not even close. Try it, she said, winking. He did. Thought about it. Not bad. Whatever, she laughed, walking away. Gabe and Lerner watched John watch her. Blue eyes? Lerner said. Then his tone hardened. I'm wondering why I'm back here. You said you wanted everything I know about Garrison Green, Gabe said. I'm here to tell you. No interruptions this time. He leaned forward, voice dropping into something that felt rehearsed only because he'd lived with it too long. Birth record lost in the Greenville fire, but folks remember the Greens celebrating. Puts Garrison close to 60. He paused. All the Green kids were homeschooled by the mother. After that, nothing until the Army. He lit another cigarette. Local registry shows he enlists young, 17, rumored special forces like his father. Then 8 years of nothing. Then the family gets a KIA notice. No body, no death certificate. He exhaled smoke. A year later, both parents die. No cause listed, just deceased. Months after that, the Greenville fire wipes out most of the town, records included. He looked at John. 18 months later, Garrison shows up in a ward. 6 months institutionalized under Dr. Frost. Barely any notes. Then he's released. Cured. Gabe leaned back. That's it. That's the last official trace of him. He swallowed. The story is he came home to find his parents dead and the family estate gone, and in his rage he turned on whoever he blamed. Why Crosstown? John asked. The Greens were hated, Gabe said flatly. Militant, sadistic. They wore God like a weapon. 2 siblings died young. Folks said the mother ran that house like a camp. The words hung heavy. People disappearing wasn't new, Gabe went on. One day, I think the Crosstown Church decided to act, rid the world of what they called agents of the Morning Star. So Crosstown burned Greenville down? John scoffed. Any proof? No proof, Gabe said, staring out the window. No doubt. He flicked ashes into the saucer. Since then, Garrison takes Crosstown kids, lurks the eastern woods. Then why not hunt them? John snapped. Round up a posse. Gabe glanced at Lerner. Lerner didn't look up. Oh, we have, Gabe said. Drunken men with guns chasing shadows. Ends exactly how you think. John whistled. Bullshit. Gabe stood. Believe what you want. What matters is this. Green is in your towns now. He dropped a 5 on the table. Deal with it fast. He doesn't stop. He walked out. John stood. I'm heading back to civilization. Want me to see if someone can give you a ride? Lerner gathered his things and followed. They drove back to Borton City, and the illusion of answers. And somewhere behind them, the story kept changing shape. Chapter 8. County Press Release. Chief Carson stepped up to the microphone outside City Hall and felt the weight of the night settle fully onto his shoulders. The crowd in front of him wasn't loud yet, but that was worse. They stood close together, faces pale, eyes sharp. Fear had been working on them for 10 hours straight, and fear, given time, turned brittle. Carson cleared his throat. His hands were shaking and he didn't bother hiding it. Mayor Livingston can't be with us, he said. His voice came out thinner than he wanted. He's attending to his family. He paused, then added, during his absence, Councilman Skinner Borton will assume mayoral duties, including public communication. Carson stepped aside and gestured. Skinner Borton moved forward with the ease of a man who had done this his whole life, if not many lifetimes. He was pushing 70, bald on top with a ring of gray hair clinging stubbornly to the sides and back, like it knew better than to leave entirely. His face had sharp lines, predatory lines. But when your last name was Borton, people tended to forgive severity. They call it experience. Last night, Skinner said, voice dry and precise, our community experienced a tragedy few words can do justice. The crowd leaned in without realizing it. Bud Livingston, Skinner continued, a child of this city, was taken from the safety of his bedroom and murdered only blocks away. A loud sound rippled through the people, grief colliding with disbelief. To aid his escape, Skinner went on, the perpetrator employed a chemical agent of some kind. Our laboratories are analyzing it now. He dipped his head slightly. That substance is the reason many of you were evacuated this morning. For that inconvenience, I am truly sorry. He looked out over them calmly. Fear rolled through the crowd, but Skinner didn't flinch. He understood crowds. He understood that frightened people weren't dangerous yet, but they were close. "Did the murderer get away?" someone shouted. Skinner exhaled slowly, like a man steadying himself, not because he was rattled, but because timing mattered. "Yes," he said, "but he left us a witness, and within hours we identified him." The pause that followed was surgical. "The man we are searching for is Garrison Green." The name moved through the crowd like a cold wind through tall grass. People whispered it to one another, testing how it felt in their mouths. "The image released to the media," Skinner said, "is an accurate rendering of this individual." He hesitated just long enough. "He has no permanent address, no known financial footprint. He is most likely transient, living in the spaces between our homes." Fear sharpened. It changed shape. "Is this connected to the Lighthouse Beach murders?" someone yelled. Skinner glanced briefly at the officials beside him, then back to the crowd. "I could lie to you," he said evenly, "but I won't." A hush fell. "We have reason to believe that these crimes are connected. I'm not telling you this to frighten you," Skinner continued. "This is frightening, but fear can be useful." He raised a finger slightly. "Fear reminds us to protect what matters." Hands shot up from the press pit. Skinner raised his palm. "The only question you should be asking," he said, "is what your elected officials are doing to keep you safe." The hand slowly lowered. The crowd went quiet. Skinner leaned closer to the microphones. "The answer," he said, "is everything possible." He straightened. "Effective immediately, a regional investigative task force has been approved." He let the words sit. "This team consists of individuals specifically chosen for cases like this. Every city council in the surrounding region was asked to participate." He smiled thinly. 1 hour ago, we received unanimous approval. That landed harder than the applause ever could. "All local agencies will assist and defer to this task force until this threat is resolved." A reporter called out, "Who do they answer to?" Skinner didn't hesitate. "They answer to me," he said. "They answer to you. They answer to every citizen of this community." The silence afterward was different. No longer panicked, but expectant. "Are our children safe?" a woman shouted from the back. Skinner paused. When he spoke again, his voice was slow, softened, practiced compassion. "I wish I could tell you the world is not full of monsters," he said. "I wish I could promise that everyone means well." He shook his head gently. "But that isn't our world." A few people nodded, some wiped tears. "The world is full of monsters," Skinner said. "And here, in Borton City and the surrounding towns, we are fighting back." He spread his hands. "And we are changing our world." Applause erupted, loud, desperate, grateful. As Skinner Borton stepped away from the podium, the sound washed over him like a drug. Deep inside, beneath the practiced concern and civic duty, he felt it again. That old familiar surge. He still had it. And as he disappeared into City Hall, thousands watched, some in person, some through screens, believing they had just been protected. None of them noticed what really happened.